It's 11:59 at Radio Free America, and this is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
All right, welcome everybody. I guess I gotta change my avatar over here. We're going live here this evening. See if anybody joins us. And the topic tonight is these drones, these camera drones. You may not be paying attention. Most people probably are not. But they're going after two of the companies that import these drones. And there's obviously more to it than meets the eye. So there's some ramifications in store. There's obviously we could talk about the law itself, why they made it, if it's necessary. But what I'd really like to talk about, and put out there to be pondered is the concept of, are these drones out there? Are they arms? I see DJs out there. Welcome. Is my audio all right? I've got the fan. I guess I can turn this fan off. Are these things part of our inventory of gear that we'd want available to us? I do not like having things restricted. I think, thanks. I think that, anything we might want, like thermal, things we might want, like infrared or night vision, things we might want like security cameras, things we might want like radios and technology like that, mesh networks, ham radios, the ability to listen to shortwave and really long distance broadcasts. These are all things that aren't necessarily arms, but they're adjacent to. And how many of those things do we give up? So I like the robots. I put in the robots here, describe something that'll cover this issue for us. And it's basically the description of this video. So let's go ahead and get into that. We'll see if anybody joins us. Feel free to be part of this. I don't do these as presentations, and that's not because I'm lazy. It is because, I'm probably lazy, but it's because I value the live interactive nature of the internet. To be honest, it's been more interactive in the past, so I'm not sure what's going on with that, if it's just different people or different times, but you are allowed to participate on these live conversations. These aren't lectures, these are conversations. So I don't have anybody in here tonight. I didn't bother to put a link out there because I went live kind of spur of the moment here. Everybody else kind of went off air. We got a little while before barbecue goes live. So I figured I'd go live to talk about this because this is something that's imminent. We're about to see some laws drastically change the playing field with drones. This is very, very similar. Since I'm doing this on the gun channel, this might be the best way to say it. This is basically when they stop the importation of AK-47s, SKSs, and 7.62x39 ammo. That's what they're doing right now for our technology. So a lot of people are going to go, well, I don't play around with these drones. I don't like these toys. But the one drone, these are toys. The ones I have on the table are my toys. But these are livelihoods for people, and that can be everything from doing stuff around homes, home inspection. These have thermal cameras on them. So think of somebody doing insulation or HVAC work, and they'll use these things to get up on roofs. But just think of regular old contractors doing typical stuff: tree people, roof people, people putting in antennas and satellite dishes and stuff. This gives them the ability to get up on the roof, get an idea what's going on up there, so that they can bring the right equipment up onto the roof. I don't know if y'all ever worked on a roof. I did quite a bit of AC work up on a roof. If I would have had a little drone to be able to pop up and be some eyes, it's just I'm not even exaggerating. It's life-saving, because it can literally let you know what to bring up there, so you're not wasting your time. There's a lot of injuries out there because we're bringing extra junk up onto our roof. So just for that, I mean, I can't even tell you, these little drones that fit in your pocket and they don't take nothing to go up in the air. You basically program them to go up, see what's going on top of your ladder, come back down. That kind of stuff is invaluable. I'm surprised some of the construction companies don't already have these things. But anyway, from that to think of search and rescue. Think about when somebody gets lost out there. We take it for granted at this point that the drones with thermal imaging get up there and can see through the trees and see through the brush and everything and see the human, the heat of the human down through there. And that's what they're trying to get rid of, unfortunately. And it's dumb. And it's because some perception that these things are magic, right? Same thing with guns, right? Like, oh, these things are dangerous. Are they really? Like in a movie, maybe like some science fiction version of these things might be dangerous. The movie from, what's that Tom Selleck movie from back in the 80s? Yeah, maybe they were dangerous in your mind back then, but they're not those, fantasy robots. These are really just cameras with propellers on them that allow us to do some really neat stuff. Then you can think of crop dusters, the airplanes that go up and fly around. Instead of having to have a human do that, a lot of places will fly just a big drone around, basically a big a big sprayer on the back of a drone, and much quicker, much fewer resources, much less dangerous than doing it the old-fashioned way. And it can be, anyway, there's all kinds of things that they use these things for. And that's where we're in danger of essentially losing the ability to bring in new ones. And you can imagine when I was just watching some shows that estimated at something like some number of millions of these drones just from this one company are in the country. And as those start to fail, because these things are not serviceable, they're designed like a lot of our electronics to just be used until they break, and then you buy another one because they come out with new ones every couple of years or whatever. And once they say that through a government regulation, you can no longer import them again, as soon as yours break, you're out of luck. Now, again, nobody really seems to care, so nobody's going to jump in tonight and have any opinion on this. But there's nothing to replace this. It's not as though this is the Chinese version, but if you use the American version, you'd be just as good. There is no American version, and it certainly isn't as good because it doesn't exist. So we're not anywhere near being able to supply the number of drones that would be necessary just for the firefighters on the search and rescue. And again, the people that are doing stuff like, maybe checking airplanes with them at airports and stuff like that, like they do these things, they do all kinds of things that are, avoid the risk and avoid the time it takes to get somebody up on top of something. Being able to zoom around with some eyes like that, the computer eyes, it's just really neat. The motivation to ban them, from what I understand, and I'm not an expert on this, I'm relatively new to the scene, is there's companies that have lobbyists, I guess you could say, have representatives that are on their side, and they claim that since DJI is 20% owned by the Chinese communists, that's an issue. So they need to have an inspection done of their products in order to be okayed, given the thumbs up for importation. So the FCC, people in charge of the air, I guess, said, sure, that sounds like a good idea. Or maybe it was the FCC. I can't remember if it's the FAA doing this or the FCC, because they're basically named the same thing. It's either the people complaining about the radio waves or it's the people complaining about the airspace. I think it's the FCC now that I'm thinking about it. I think it's the radio waves. But anyway, the problem is that they said, there might be a danger here. We're concerned. So we want to see a complete audit of these devices. Well, that's something that is required to be done by a government agency like the FCC or the FAA. And the FAA said, or excuse me, I think it was the FCC said, this has to be done. But then they also just put down the paper and walked away and said, if it isn't done by December 23rd, then you can no longer import these models, any of them, like anything from this company. And there's actually a couple of companies, but DJI is the only one that matters. So, if no government agency says, let's do an audit of these machines so that we can verify that there's nothing wrong with them, it's sort of like they're guilty until proven innocent, but there's no reason for anybody to try to prove them innocent. So the company can't do it. They can't do it themselves. There's no third person that's going to do that for them. It'd be nice because millions of us own these things. It'd be nice if somebody did do it, but who are we going to get to do that? It has to be a government agency. And then the government shut down right now, so that's not helping anything, I suspect. So anyway, it's already too late. Like there's nothing that really can be done. The only thing that is proposed, I guess you could say, is some of the people, if you could call them activists for these drones, or people like this, like me, what I'm doing right now, just getting the word out so that if people wanted to, they could call their representatives, let them know that this is just a bunch of dumbness and not to let it go through. But I don't know of any thing that's making it stop. Like there's no way to stop it other than like some representative, I guess, getting up and saying, hey, stop it. And none of them are doing that. And I don't know of any campaign to make that happen. Like I said, it's just one of these frustrating things that we all have to kind of watch happen in slow motion, the speed of government, because it was created by this entity, this did I get to I think the idea is that some company who assembles drones in the United States, like they don't make the components, obviously. Nobody in the United States makes chips or some of these other small components, but they buy those components from international sources and then create, they assemble a drone here in the United States. That company is the one that started this, or started the witch hunt, let's say. And there's, unless you could maybe call that company, call them a bunch of jerks, like I doubt they're going to stop doing it. So without someone on the other side to champion the concept of, hey, you're just making a witch hunt here, I don't think there's much that can be done. So really it's just a matter of, will someone in a million thing happen, or will, I don't know, some random thing shine light on this so that it does get stopped? I kind of doubt it. So I'm not really anticipating one way or the other. I mean, I guess I'm anticipating the 23rd will happen. No government agency will have done the review, and then the DJIs will basically no longer be able to be imported. And this other company, Altel or something. So what that means is the company still makes the drones. It's just that now they go to Europe and South America and Canada and Mexico and stuff. So the what do you call them? The cartels will have them. That's always smart. Let the cartels have the next level drone. But anyway, so we won't get them, but the rest of the world will continue to get DJI drones as they make basically better cameras all the time. And that's pretty much what they're doing. They make the drones very maneuverable at this point and very powerful. So I suppose they might be able to attack stronger winds and then have better cameras that maybe can deal with better light conditions. When you're flying at sunset, for example, that can really, that needs a big camera, like a strong camera that can handle the contrasts and stuff. So be able to put it, they're able to put really big cameras with really good stabilization into really strong platforms, machines that keep them up in the air. They've done that over and over. You're looking at the screen here at my pile of them. These aren't all working. Some of them are broken, but most of them are working, and they all serve like a purpose. The two with the propellers that are guarded like that, I'm hoping to use for doing like real estate walkthroughs. When you fly through like a fancy house or whatever. That's what I'm hoping to do with these. Now, that business of flying through a house, making a couple of bucks, flying through a house, probably for the real estate agent. I don't know, maybe for the homeowner. I don't know who really pays you for that. But you'd want the props protected, right? You don't want to hit a wall or break something. So when those do break, when I fly it into a swimming pool or inevitably fly it into a fireplace or something, it'll break and then I won't be able to get another one. And that'll suck. So that's an issue. Again, they're going to block two companies, which is in itself dumb because, there's only two companies that are going to do something nefarious if they are. But anyway, that means that some other companies will eventually sell something. Holy Stone is a company that's making a medium quality one right now, better one than a toy, but not as good as these, people will just switch to those, and that'll be like going backwards 12, 15 years in drones. I don't know, really, but a long time ago. The new ones from other companies are capable machines. They can fly okay, but they can't hover and stay in one place, and they have no ability to, what's the word, like deal with the stabilization. They look like you're standing on a boat or something all the time. And they're shitty. They just have really, they look fuzzy and shitty. But so we'll all go backwards as if this law goes through and it doesn't get challenged or anything. So I don't know I haven't seen anybody in the drone community. They're not used to being political, I guess. So there's not activists over there. They're not upset. They're just reporting their version of what they think is going to happen, but none of them are proactive. None of them are trying to do anything about it. So I'm not sure if there is any plan to do anything about this, but I figured I'd let gun owners know, because we're used to this. Like I say, I think the best thing I can think of is, or the closest analogy I can come up with, is the importation bans on SKSs and AK-47s. Somebody thought it was a wise thing to do because they're so dangerous. All the people in the community, everybody knew about guns, knew that there's no difference between an AK and a AR-15 really. But somebody was able to convince a politician that there is some sort of a difference that warranted that persecution of a single one. And now we're dealing with that. And because of that, most people have never shot an AK-47, right? Most people have never even seen an SKS. And if they have, they think it's an $800 gun. They don't know what it's like to have, inexpensive Soviet Cold War stuff, which is really what they all should be, considering how many of those were made and how few of them were used. So anyway, I'm going to read. I see Woods is out there. Welcome. Oh, thanks for putting the link to the switchboard. I probably should have thought of that before I went live. So thanks for doing that, DJ. But if somebody's listening to this or somebody's concerned about this, or if you're just interested in calling your politician, your representative, the number's 202. That's the area code. And then 224-3121. Super easy to remember. Just think of 202 and then the number 22, which is easy to remember because it's 2 2s in a row. And then 43 is like the number 43. So that's super easy to remember. And then 121, those numbers right next to each other. So see how easy it is to remember? 202-224-3121. And now that you have that real easy way to remember it, you can just call them whenever you want. Tell them what's on your mind, because after all, they took the job on to represent you. Let's see. Let's see. So then, Woods is out there. What was I going to do? I got distracted by reading over here. I shouldn't have been reading over here. Let's see. Woods is saying if only the president did an executive action and allowed free states to get block AKs. I don't know. If I had to go between AKs and drones, that'd be an interesting question. But I don't know if he's going to plan on doing that. He might do that actually because it would bother people, and he's into bothering people. But I'm not sure that anybody's going to do too much about these drones. I think what we've got is the us and them, or the like us. Is it the us versus them? I guess with China. I don't know. It's not really a Cold War. It's a weird thing going on with China. We completely feed off of their products. We somehow hate them for that, but at the same time, we take it for granted, I guess is the gracious way of saying it. But we essentially, depend on their products. They depend on us as customers, and also they probably want to be us to some extent, just because we're, a big chunk of the West, or whatever they call the free world or the non-China world. To some extent, right? Like not a lot. They don't like. We're not they're not a country that looks outward too much. But anyway, that being said, it's just a weird relationship we've got with China. And I don't know that that needs to change and that anybody's going to change that. It's been a crazy relationship for a long time. And even if we changed our methodology or our opinions as a group of China, it doesn't mean that then because there's more Chinese and they have to change their opinion of us for effectively anything to change, right? But at the same time, of all the things we get from there, like our phones and our every appliance, like just pretty much so many things, to pick out this one thing because it's so awesome and pick on it, it's annoying. So, yeah, that's where we're at. So anyway, I'm going to read the description of the video here, which is basically what the robots came up with. We'll see how good they did. All right, the question of whether drones qualify as arms under the Second Amendment is one of the most interesting modern debates in technology and constitutional interpretation. The framers of the Constitution could not have imagined a world where ordinary citizens could own a flying camera equipped, capable of surveillance, communication, or even remote delivery. Yet, with any emerging technology that can be used for defense, recreation, or expression, the same old questions arise. What is a tool of liberty and what is a tool to control? Drones occupy a gray area between the personal electronics and potential defensive tools. On one hand, they are sold commercially for photography, exploration, and research. On the other, they can clearly be adapted for tasks that resemble traditional uses of arms, such as reconnaissance, security, or even tactical deployment in military or law enforcement settings. This dual nature complicates any legal classification. If the Second Amendment protects arms commonly owned and used by citizens for lawful purposes, some argue that drones, especially small unarmed ones, might fit that definition in a future where they become a regular part of home defense or security systems. Remember Mach 5? I think that was science fiction, or was that just a echo of the future? From the other side, critics of this interpretation argue that drones are vehicles or devices, not weapons, and that extending Second Amendment protections to them could open the door to unregulated airborne systems with potentially dangerous capabilities. Those would emphasize that airspace is already heavily regulated by the FAA and that the government has a clear interest in preventing misuse that could threaten public safety or privacy. For this reason, they maintain that drones are subject to a separate body of law, aviation's and communication regulation, distinct from constitutional arms protections. Ultimately, the debate reflects a deeper question about freedom and technology in the 21st century. As tools evolve, the line between what is considered an arm and what is simply a device becomes increasingly blurry. Drones may not be firearms, but they represent an extension of personal capability, mobility, perception, and reach that echoes the historical purpose of the Second Amendment, to ensure that individuals retain meaningful control over the tools that empower them. Whether future courts or representatives will recognize drones in that light remains to be seen. But it is a conversation that will only grow as technology continues to redefine what it means to be armed. Hillbilly said, I'd hope to get a drone one day. They look fun. Heck yeah, dude. Like, they are so fun. Looking at the one on the screen here, this little gray one that's very bottom left. That one it comes by itself with one battery, and you don't need a remote control. You can just like point at it and give it a thumbs up type of thing, and it just takes off out of your hand and lands in your hand. It's not much bigger than your hand, really. It's a small one. And it has a very capable camera. It is super fun. Chris from the 740 has one, and that is the one I would recommend getting. It's $200 if you just buy it, or I would recommend buying it with 3 batteries right away. You can barely see them. Let's see if I move myself. Can I move myself out of the way and not in the way? Oh, there, wherever I was. You look underneath of me now, like to the bottom left of that drone. That's the 3 battery combo thing. One of the batteries is in it. The other 2 are in that case. That set is $300, and that's what I'd recommend all day long. That thing is amazing, super fun. You can run it with your phone. You can run it by just waving at it. It works with some of the other remote controls also, but it's super fun. It is so fun. Anyway, it's tiny. You can carry it around. The props are covered. definitely a great introduction drone. Aside from that, all of these are awesome. Anybody wants to talk about drones, we can do it. I've got another 20 minutes or so. But the conversation tonight, though, is, are they covered by the Second Amendment? Are they arms? It says in the robot description of the thing here, somewhere up here, it said, such as reconnaissance, security, or even tactical deployment in military and law enforcement. Let's see. So if the Second Amendment protects arms commonly owned and used by citizens for lawful purposes, some argue that drones, especially the small unarmed ones, might fit that definition in a future where they become a regular part of home defense or security systems. So you hear that bump in the night. What's stopping a drone from popping up out of your roof and taking a look around? So, it's one thing to have cameras pointing out from your doorbell or camera mounted to the ceiling or a corner or a pole somewhere. But I guess if you had a camera out on a light post, it would be about the same. But I'm thinking for like that little guy, that $200 drone, that would not be difficult to put in some sort of a little enclosure up on your roof that's weatherproof and that opens up like in a James Bond movie or something. And then when, it needs to, it pops up, does like a perimeter of your house. Of course, you'd map in where your trees are, and it would, have just like a robot pet bird, it would know where your yard is and it wouldn't leave your yard. But it could go up and be a remote view of what's going on in your yard, what's coming up your driveway, depending on your situation, if you've got a yard or if you've even got just a stairway or something that people, anyway, I could totally see the application for a little drone, just as some insight. Nobody's ever going to fly an airplane 16 feet from your house. So if you built a little drone system that would never, that would be tethered to the building technically and would never be able to leave more than 20 feet without falling out of the sky, then it would never even really be a drone. It would just be a portion of your home security system. And like I say, if these things are that cheap now, and they've already got, you think of the drones that are going to be delivering stuff for Walmart and that kind of thing. Those drones are all running off of, there's no human with a joystick running these. So having a drone that could pop up out of your ceiling, or not out of your ceiling, but out of your roof, fly around. And again, think about a drone at a, maybe not your house, but think about like a remote warehouse where, you just don't need to hire a person there, but you'd like to have a set of eyes there once in a while if you hear something, alarm goes off or, something. And, how long is it going to be before we have these options to have a drone pop up and be, remote surveillance for remote facilities? Anyway, I think that's an interesting concept to see them as part of literally as part of a home defense. But before that, even just the idea that if again, maybe you're out camping, maybe you're out hunting, I usually take mine up just to see what's going on. Whenever we camp or something nowadays, whenever I stop, I'll take the drone straight up, get an idea of the lay of the land, make sure we're not camping right next to somebody who's right over the hill, or, we're not over the hill from something, I don't know, shitter or somebody's backyard, you know what I mean? Like we make sure that we're where we want to be and there ain't nobody else around or nothing. And, how long before people are doing that in a regular thing, Open carry drones, it just follows you everywhere, like 2 foot over your shoulder. I'm not sure how far away we are from that. That little guy that I'm saying is such a great one to buy, that $200 drone. The reason it flies without a remote control is because it's made for kids, to take to the beach or take to the park and just have it follow them around. So, that is what that does. You've seen it, I'm sure. It's been on them ever since the Terminator. They've got that AI tracking, all that going on. It's it sees you. It has like a little green box around you when you look through its eyes, and it just follows you around. It's not as fancy as some of the other ones that they make, because it's just a small one, but some of the others can actually see you go behind leaves and stuff, and it'll just, wait for you on the other side of the tree or something. So anyway, these things are pretty much made to do that. So it's just a matter of time. These things fly for, I don't know, about 30 minutes on a battery right now. And if you had 3 batteries, that's 90 minutes. So they're not quite to where they'll just follow you around all day. But how long are we before graphene is inexpensive? They've already created graphene. Show of hands, how many people know what graphene is? The material called graphene. It's an interesting material that's a fairly new innovation. I don't know if it's an invention. It's some of those things, is it something that was always there and we just discovered it, or did we create it? But graphene is essentially what the modern material is, the way that nylon was modern to hemp rope back in the day. Hemp is great. And before that, there was cotton. I guess not before, but at the same time, we had cotton and hemp. We had the fiber ropes and materials. And then we figured out how to manipulate petroleum into nylons and all the synthetic fibers. And what we've been able to do with synthetic fibers, well, graphene is the next level from that. And it's stronger than metal, lighter than plastic. And when we're able to run or make things out of a material that's stronger than metal but lighter than plastic, things will be much, a factor smaller than they are today. So what we think is impossible because it's just not possible with what we've got today. Think of what a cell phone looked like, whatever, 10 years ago, and how big it was. I guess before there was smartphones, back in the old days when they were bricks, right? And think of how big what a smartphone can do today. So what are these drones going to look like? Yeah, I think it's probably a matter of time before these things are something like electronic butterflies or hummingbirds, and girls just have them, that look like a pin. And when they want them to, it's just a hummingbird pin. And when they want it to, it's a hummingbird hover camera. And let's take that out for a second. You've got a hummingbird pin on, but it's really a body cam. And now something happens and that thing takes off into the air. The girl is defending herself, and now there's an ally that's 16 foot above her, broadcasting to the police, dialing 911 with a live stream of what's going on. Show of hands, who wants that, right? Like, who's going to stand in line for that? Like, everyone wants that for their daughters, right? Everyone wants their mom to have that thing. So how far away are we from that? 2 years? 3 years maybe? We're shit tons far away from that if we start banning companies that make that shit. So the Earth will be 2 or 3 years away from that. How long will the United States be standing there watching the rest of the world have little hummingbird drones? Maybe they look like dragonflies. I'm not sure. Maybe they start out looking like woodpeckers. But you know where I'm going with that. Let's see, super helpful for a kid out and about. Yeah. And then just, right now what we're doing with drones, like what I'd like to do, now that you're saying that, first thing that made me think of I don't know what made me think of it, but first thing came to mind was a canoe trip or something. And how fun would it be to be on a canoe trip in 2025 with one of these little drones where, I did so many canoe trips back in the day. And I think we must have taken some pictures, but a shitty 35 millimeter picture taken by a kid versus, the cameras on these things and what they can do when they jump up to 200 feet or whatever they can do up in I don't know what they can do in the boundary waters. Maybe they can't even fly up there, but you know what I'm saying? It's just going to be amazing to be able to go on an outback vacation like that and bring that thing along and be able to record some of the, just the amazingness of the world. Sounds super to 1984, however. Drones watching everyone always. Well, our phones watch everything we do, and we pay to have those in our pockets. So we're beyond suggesting that external forces are monitoring us when we all have a phone. And I don't know too many people that's usually next to your body when you're sleeping, charging, and then when you wake up, it's with you even when you're shitting. So most of the time it's in your pocket when you're eating, it's in your hands when you're shitting, you know what I mean? And just it's with people all the time. So we're beyond 1984. 1984, you had to walk over to the TV and it would get mad if you went in the corner because it couldn't see you. We adjust our phones so that the camera's pointing at our forehead constantly so that we can see what's on it. So I hear you, but not really. So the drones, with their little tiny cameras, better and better all the time, but the huge files that come out of them, are not being disseminated through the airwaves over to China or anything. So I don't know. We've got another 10 minutes or so, but again, I think that these things are super fun. The way that we're flying them and stuff is becoming easier and easier. The DJIs are the best ones out there. Whatever happens with the government's like paranoia / scaredness and their reaction and their ban, which is what they're going to do. They're going to ban the brand from being imported. What we'll end up with is the ones that are here, and there's probably a shit ton. Like, I have no idea. I ordered another one. So you see these two on the left that have the rotors or the blades or whatever you want to call them, like enclosed. I think they make 4 that are this style. I bought a third one, different style. That's kind of between these two. My problem is the little guy is awesome and he has a pretty good camera, but he's a little guy and he's not a toy, but he can't really climb very good and he can't do a lot. He can't go very far. So he's fun, but he's very small. And the big guy is $1,000 and I'm just not good at flying him. He needs to be flown with the goggles on and it's fun and everything, but I have no practice with that yet. So I grabbed one that's in between cost wise and size wise. It has a way better camera than the little guy. And it's physically half, in the middle there, size wise, weight wise and everything. But I can fly it with a regular remote control. So that's why I ended up, thanks to Clover, posting a link on his channel. You can see what I ended up grabbing. So anyway, I grabbed one and I bought it today at 6 p.m., an hour or two ago, and it's already going to be here tomorrow. So they definitely have a lot of them in the country. I don't think there's any mad rush to buy them. I suspect there's probably a lot in the country in warehouses. And I suspect if whatever number there would normally be for Christmas, there's that many plus, because there's this concern that they're not going to be able to import the new models anymore. So what that means is I think it'll be probably a year or two before they start to run out. I think. There's no way to know. But if the worst case scenario and they can't import them anymore, I think we got some time. So I went ahead and bought another one. Like I said, I'm hoping to use them for real estate stuff. So if you know anybody in this part of the country that's looking for filming their real estate, let me know. I'll do it cheap, so I'm just trying to figure it all out. Will my drone be dropped off by a drone? No, but I did request that a robot driver or like one of those robot cars deliver it, and then a robot looking like C-3PO looking robot will come out of the car. It's not going to have to drive the car. The robot car drives itself. But the C-3PO robot will bring the box out of the car to the human who will accept the package. But what I'm going to do is have a robot accept the package so that no human will have ever touched my robot. It will have come off the robot assembly line and then went through all the robot shipping people along the way and robot vehicles. And then another robot butler will bring it to me. And that way my human hands will be the first human hands to ever touch it. Or I'll have the dog do it. And if the dog unwraps it and gets it all set up, then no human will have ever touched it. And only a pug will have ever touched it before it went in the air. That was pretty close to being Skyling or Skynet at that point. All right. We might have about 8 minutes left. We do have a lot of people listening, but not really that many people participating. Feel free to be participating, though. That's what it's all about. I see Paul is out there. So Hillbilly's saying 2 years ago, I bought a $200 drone. two of my son-in-laws wanted to see how it could fly. They got it about 100 foot. The wind caught it, and we never saw it again. That's frustrating. And that's one of those things. I don't know which one you got for 200. This one is 200, and it is definitely small, like lightweight. So probably one of the reasons it doesn't climb so well is because they didn't bother to make it climb really well, because that's what's going to happen, right? Like you get it into a high wind, high enough off the ground, yeah, and you'll never see it again unless you happen to be on a giant field or something where you can see it come down. It happened to me. Well, actually, I took this one up. Now that you're saying that, I was coming down the mountain. There's a couple of mountains over in Arizona. I was really high up, 10,000 feet, and probably about 10,000 feet where I was filming. And I was just trying to film this valley, and I was 16 feet off the ground or something. I wasn't like all that high off the ground, but a wind gust came along and took it. And because it's so light, it just has to go with the wind. It can't fight the wind. It's not strong enough. And so what I did is I started going down as fast as I could, but it was still being taken by the wind. But because I was standing in a giant meadow, like basically a giant grassy field, it did come down. I just had to go, walk a whole ways to go get it. But that would be annoying if you took it up really high and then you never saw it again. That almost happened to a couple of my toy ones, but then I just quit going outside with them. But the thing is, I just don't know. For $200, that's that price range where I'm not sure which one. If you had a really nice one that was just lightweight, so it was gone, or if you had a powerful one, because $200 could buy a pretty powerful one back then. Like the first one that Pink Panther gave me one of his. I forgot what the circumstances were, but he ended up with two decent ones. Like I think they were $300-400 drones, maybe $500 drones, and it was strong. Like it was lightweight. It wasn't super light, not as lightweight as the new ones, because they didn't have the weight restrictions back then. So there was really no reason to make a lightweight one other than wear and tear on the batteries or whatever. But that thing was powerful, but it was not powerful enough to fight all wind. It could handle some decent wind, but compared to these DJIs, that's one of the reasons I'm so impressed with the DJIs is they don't look it because they look a little fragile. They look kind of wimpy, but once you've flown them a little bit, you realize those motors are just super powerful, and those batteries got so much juice that size-wise, they comparison, that one on the right here, the Mini 3 Pro is the one on the right there, just above the one controller, next to the salt lamp. That one is probably a little bit smaller than that first drone I'm talking about, the first one that Pink gave me, that Exo drone, but this one's probably 3 times the power. Like it's just massively more strong. So this one can go up, I think it says up to 27-mile-an-hour winds. I've had it in 16-mile-an-hour winds, or maybe it goes to 16 and I've had it in 13, but I haven't quite maxed it out, but it is just a beast. So that's the big difference, and that's one of those things. So it really brings up an interesting point there, that's when they say what's the difference between these things, the motors, or the ability to put power into those motors, is just drastically different. Now I do have like a $300 Holy Stone, and I don't know if I can do it tomorrow, but I'm going to try to sooner than later get out and compare the Holy Stone, which again is about a $300 one, to the new one I'm going to get, which is about a $400 one. So we'll see, or I'll be able to see, especially now that I can fly them a little better. When I first got that Holy Stone, I barely knew what I was doing. So I'm curious to get it out there. It might have a little bit, I got it used, so it might have a little bit of a limp to it. So it's probably not the best indication of a Holy Stone because I did get it used, but it'll give me some idea of how those things are compared to I suspect the Holy Stone is going to be like a regular car, and the DJIs are like having a hot rod. So they're close. It's just that they're a lot more power. I mean, close in physical look, but they're a lot more power. Hillbilly saying it was a lightweight and they turned it and flying it back and the wind was too strong. Yeah, it's frustrating. And then, so now you have, you've got 2 ways you could fly a robot, basically. Recreationally, or like without a license, or you go get a license. You don't need to get a license, but sometimes you need a license. Let's put it that way. You need a license if you're going to make money on the drone, and you need a license if you're going to do it for pay or something like that. So you need it if you're going to do something with the drone, and then the license is handy because you can fly closer to airports. You're allowed to get authorization from the control tower, and but you don't have to do all that. You can fly it, they call it recreationally. So which means you just fly it around. You still have to get a license plate for it technically, and do this free test, which is sort of like a learner's permit or something. That is just like 15 questions, but it just makes sure that you know some of the worst things you could do with a drone, so that you know not to do them, like fly in front of an airplane and crash it, right? Like, so it's basically some of the basic stuff, like where you're not supposed to fly the thing. Most of the controllers, I think, will tell you, like if you're trying to fly it right next to an aircraft or an airport or something. But that's about the worst thing you could do, is fly it next to an airport. The next worst thing you can do is fly it somewhere where it's illegal, like a national park. And again, I think they will tell you most of the time that the things are smart enough to tell you you're about to fly this from someplace you're not allowed to. They might not stop you from doing it, but they're going to usually tell you so that you don't make the mistake. So everybody's just like any crime, right? You're always going to get in trouble. So it doesn't matter if you have a license or not. You're flying in the wrong spot. You're still, responsible to know if you're flying in the right spot or not. So anyway, that's the two things. So you can either fly with a remote or with a license or not. The reason I'm bringing all that up because of what Hillbilly was saying when he lost his drone. There's a law now that if you're flying it with your license, you got to have a beacon on it, basically, that says who you are and what the drone is. They call it a remote ID. And most of these drones are built for recreational. They're built for regular people. And they know that regular people don't want a remote ID on there. It adds weight, cost, and it is a beacon that's saying a number that you don't. It's like having your license plate radio wave go out with your license plate number digitally. You just don't need that and you don't want it. So they make these without it. Now, some of the models, the bigger expensive models, have it in there and you can't do nothing about it. But the little models, the ones that are kind of designed for people to play with, they don't have it in there. And that's why some of these little ones you can't fly with your license. You'd have to put a remote ID on there. And they make like a little, it kind of looks like a strobe light or something. You stick it on a tiny one of these drones that doesn't have it built in. Anyway, so that long explanation was to say those things, I just bought one, so that's why I happen to know about them. They cost like $30 for the most expensive ones, $20 for the cheap ones. And in the future, if you get yourself a drone, it might be worth investing in one of those, mainly even if you don't have a license, because the one I got for $30, it just sticks on there, I'm pretty sure. It doesn't weigh that much, it has to weigh something, but it'll beep. It has a strobe light and it has a GPS thingy so you can find it. And that's one of the reasons I grabbed it, is because of what you just said, Hillbilly, that like I'm afraid if even in a strong wind that I'm not anticipating, I mean, I should say even with my strong drone, if it gets a strong enough wind, it's gone. And in that case, it is going to come down somewhere. And if I had a little GPS locator on it, that'd be awesome, because then at least I might be able to find it again. So I'm going to have to get going because barbecue's going live here. I think that's where DJ went. But Hillbilly's got a great question. Do you need a license if you use drone footage on your YouTube videos if the channel is monetized? I think technically the answer is probably, I think the most accurate answer is yes. But realistically, I don't know if anyone has ever, I don't think that anything in the FAA, the pilot's license thing, says anything about YouTube. So it does say if you're going to make money. So that the monetized part of it, for sure, yes. But just on your YouTube channel in general, if you're not going to make money on it, I'm going to say that's probably more of a gray area. At least I don't think that anybody in the government is tasked with watching YouTube and going out and getting people, or verifying that every time they see drone footage, that some pilot's license is behind it. But I think that if you did something and your drone did something, you got in trouble, and then you said, "Oh, I'm blah blah blah," then they're going to go, "Well, where's your license?" And then you're always responsible for not doing something you should have done, right? But is that the way I don't know if that's a good answer. I kind of rambled there a bit, but I think the actual answer is yes. But in reality, I don't think that YouTube knows or cares. I don't think that the FAA does much about it. I do know I have heard people say that, like, the FAA would come up to them and say, "Hey, we see that you're doing like drone videos on your YouTube channel. Do you have a license?" And then they say no. And then they say, "Well, you're not supposed to do that. So rectify, solve that." Then the person goes out and gets their license, and then everything's fine. So once you have your license, everything you've already done is covered. So it's not like they're out to get people, but I think I have heard of them coming up and tapping you on the shoulder and saying, technically you're supposed to have a license. And then they give you time to go get your license. It's not like they put you in jail and then you're not, it's not of course I say that, and then who knows what they're going to do tomorrow. But I get the impression that they have other things on their mind. And right now, the government shut down. So I suspect, it's not the number one priority for anybody. But I think that is an interesting question. I haven't heard anyone discuss it. I've only seen it asked, and then I've seen like written answers. And then I think I might have seen a video or two like mention it, but I haven't heard anybody discuss it. And I would like to hear people in the know have a conversation about that, because a lot of people have drones and a lot of people have YouTube channels, and not everybody has a license yet. And honestly, not everybody needs one. That being said, they're not that hard to get. It's 90 questions. So you gotta, I forget how many are in the battery. There might be like a couple, maybe 150 questions there. And then, or no, is there 100 questions and they're going to ask you 70 of them or something like that? It's really not that many questions. So you could just memorize all the stuff, or you could just learn the stuff that you need to learn and then be able to handle the questions. Just like the ham radio. I would say it's about equivalent to the ham radio test. That being said, I'm sure everybody's mileage will vary a little bit. So what I'm trying to say is it's a test that for me, I took a couple of practice tests and I was scoring about 70%, 80%. You need 70% to win or to pass. So I was passing pretty much all the time when I was doing the practice tests, but just barely. So I scheduled my test. I did the couple of things you need to do and scheduled the test, which is $175. That's to the government. So I paid them the $175. And then I seriously studied for about 3 days. And then I went from getting 70s, just barely passing, to getting comfortably like 80s and 90s just by taking a bunch of practice tests. And then I went in and passed the test. So it's not an impossible test for sure. There's some annoying stuff about weather. There's some annoying stuff about airports. And there's some annoying stuff about whatever you call airspace, like, where the area above airports, which really don't matter because you're never going to really fly near them. But because you have a pilot's license, you can fly near them. So they want you to know not to get in the way of airplanes, basically. So all that being said, I think it's worth taking the license. I'm going to be a champion of it now, because it will allow you to use your video on your YouTube channel. And depending on how much money I start making, a nice side hustle, because there's just not that many people out there with these drones. And the ones that are usually just playing with them. And I'm really looking forward to spending some time like on weekends or maybe an afternoon here and there, flying it through somebody's fancy house and making a couple of bucks. I mean, I think that would be fun to do, and talk about a fun way to make money, right? Like going to somebody's fancy house and flying a drone through it. Like, sign me up. That's why I did it. So I don't know if I'll make a whole channel for it. We'll be following it on the Gear channel. But for anybody that's just playing around on their YouTube channel, I know it can make a gun channel amazing, but think of like a car channel and stuff, like having to follow a car driving up a road or something, like where Ghost lives in Arkansas. That'd be awesome. There's probably some really neat things. That place where we went to, the Goals Range, was up like on a mountain with a bunch of twisty roads and stuff. So anyway, I bet you there's some really neat stuff you could do. Test and license. No, the license you have to do like a pilot. So you go to a testing center. The FAA has, arrangements with all these official testing centers. So I ended up going to a place where people were getting tested for all kinds of things, probably something with the police thing. Somebody was getting a metal detector, like they had to get a metal detector before they went in. We all had to put our like watches and wallets and stuff in our pockets into a bag so that, we weren't cheating. But it's like a testing center. So you just have to arrange it in the testing center, depending on where you are. Like I think we had 2 in Tucson, 3 in Tucson. And then you do all your prep and stuff online, and you do everything else online, but you have to show up for a test at a place. And that's the reason I never did it, is I didn't feel like doing all that. But it's just like anything. Once you figure out what you have to do, it's the $175 was the worst part. Standing in line at the place to get tested. The test took, I think they give you 2 hours. The test took 30 minutes, and that includes driving over there and farting around, waiting for a couple of people in front of me. The test really was simple once you practice it for a few days. I'm going to be offering some sort of help with that if anybody's interested, because it's all fresh in my head right now, and more than happy to help people if they want some advice on studying for that. Same with the ham. I think I'm going to go back. I had a lot of fun learning the radio stuff, the pilot stuff. So I'm going to go back to my ham stuff and see if I can't get another. There's like 3 notches. I'm in the lowest notch. I'm going to get like the middle or the other notch on the ham. So stay tuned for that on the other channel if anybody's interested in studying that stuff or doing that same time. Feel free. All right, thanks again for the questions and joining us. If you're listening to this in the rewind, again, what do you consider arms? Is it just the gun? Obviously not. We need our ammo, right? They're going to try to tell us magazines aren't included. That's bullshit. So what about our optic, right? What about when they say red dots make killings too easy, right? Who's going to get rid of their red dots? Once they get rid of red dots, they're going to get rid of night sights, right? Those let you shoot in the dark. So none of this stuff is on the table. So what about night vision? What about thermals? Have you shot with thermals before? Have you looked through thermals? Thermals are freaking amazing. Thermals work during the day. Like thermals don't require it to be at night. Although half of the day, half of our lifetime is spent in the dark or in the dusk, where night vision is amazing. Digital night vision has made it possible to acquire by most people. When you talk about digital night vision on cameras, now you start talking about, again, surveillance being able to be a multiplier, a force multiplier for ourselves in our homes and when we're out. Our vehicles can potentially have thermal and infrared augmented vision. We could have that in our glasses, for crying out loud. Once we have augmented reality vision, are we going to give that up when it comes to a gunfight? Of course not. We're going to expect augmented reality glasses to help us in a gunfight as well. So drones, I don't see any difference between drones or any other technology I've mentioned. And going forward, as drones get better and more effective and more specialized to what we want to use them for, come on. Like, we need to understand that this is a capability and something that it is not at the discretion of a representative of government to decide what's free for us or what's available for us. A big house pays $500 to $600. See, that'd be awesome, dude. So I wish if I would have done it with a little bit more notice, I'd be going to Tulsa right now. But I don't think it's in the cards to go to Tulsa this weekend. But good chatting with you. Thanks everybody for joining us. And again, if you're going to give up drone cameras, what are you going to give up next?
Shit. Ninja? Ninja! Ninja!
It's 11:59 at Radio Free America, and this is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the walls. The chair is against the walls. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.